Okay, so you're thinking about life insurance, right? And maybe you're wondering, what about my Crohn's or my ulcerative colitis? Does that even matter? And you know what? That's a totally valid question.
Yeah, a lot of folks with IBD have those same thoughts. I mean, how does this all work with insurance?
Well, that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today to really break it down. We've got a ton of info from all sorts of sources, like articles from medical journals and stuff, advice from financial experts, personal stories from people just like you who've been there, done that.
Exactly. Because the truth is, this doesn't have to be some big, scary mystery. Once you understand how it all works, it can be a lot less intimidating, you know?
Definitely. It's all about arming yourself with the right knowledge, right? So first things first, can you actually get life insurance if you have Crohn's or UC?
Absolutely. And that's like the most important thing to remember throughout this whole conversation.
Okay, good. So it's not an automatic no just because of IBD. But I'm guessing it's not a one-size-fits-all situation either, right?
Right. It's more like, well, insurance companies are all about assessing risk, right? So with IBD, they look at a few key things to figure out what your individual risk level might be.
Okay, so what kind of things are they looking at?
So one of the biggies is when you were diagnosed. If it was like early on during childhood or your teens, that might mean higher premiums because from their perspective, there's a longer potential time frame where you might need to file a claim, you know?
Makes sense from a statistical standpoint, I guess.
Yeah, totally. They also want to see how severe your symptoms are and how often you have flare-ups. Like, if things are generally well managed, you're good. But if you're constantly dealing with serious symptoms or ending up in the hospital, that can definitely raise a red flag.
Makes sense. It's all about how well you're managing it, not just the fact that you have it.
Exactly. Being proactive about your health can really make a difference.
Now, you mentioned hospital stays. What about, like, surgeries? Does having a history of IBD-related surgeries affect things?
Yeah, for sure. Like if you've had a resection or anything like that, insurers are going to want to know. It's just another piece of the puzzle for them, to assess your overall risk.
Gotcha. So it sounds like they're looking at the whole picture, not just one isolated thing.
Yeah, absolutely. They want a full understanding of your health journey, you could say.
Speaking of which, what about medications? I imagine those play a big role too, right? Like, are there certain meds that make insurers nervous?
Oh, for sure. Especially medications that suppress your immune system, like long-term use of corticosteroids, those can lead to higher premiums because of the potential side effects like bone density issues or high blood pressure.
Huh. Interesting. Never really thought about it that way.
Yeah, and then there are biologics like Humira or Remicade. These are awesome for managing IBD, but they can be expensive. And for insurers, that translates to a potentially higher cost for them down the line.
So basically, any medication that has a potential for long-term costs or complications will probably factor into the equation, huh?
Yep, pretty much.
Man, it's a lot to think about. It makes me think it's super important to have someone who really knows their stuff to help you through all this, like an expert guide.
100%. Working with a good insurance broker can be a game changer. They speak the language, they know all the ins and outs, and they can help you find the best possible policy for your specific situation.
So finding a broker who specializes in IBD and life insurance, that's key.
Absolutely, because they've seen it all. They know which companies are more IBD friendly, which policies offer the best coverage, that kind of stuff.
Right, like they've got the insider knowledge.
Exactly.
So speaking of policies, can we break down the different types of life insurance someone with IBD might consider? What are the main options out there?
Okay, so you've got your fully underwritten policies. These are kind of like the gold standard, if you will.
Okay, fancy. How come?
Well, they require a medical exam, blood work, the whole nine yards. But because the insurer gets such a thorough picture of your health, you often end up with the best rates, like the most competitive pricing.
So if you're feeling pretty confident about your health and how well you're managing your IBD, fully underwritten is the way to go for the best deal.
You got it. Then there's simplified issue life insurance. These are a bit more chill, no medical exam needed.
Okay, less hassle.
Exactly. But there's a trade-off. The premiums are usually higher because the insurer has less info about your health, so they're taking on a bit more risk.
So it's all about what you prioritize, right? Convenience or potentially lower costs.
Yep. And then as a last resort, you've got your guaranteed issue policies. These are like the safety net, guaranteed approval no matter what your health situation is.
Okay, that sounds pretty appealing. What's the catch?
The catch is they're also the most expensive, and you typically get lower coverage amounts because from the insurance perspective, they're taking on the highest level of risk.
Gotcha. So fully underwritten is ideal if you're in good shape health-wise. Simplified issue offers convenience, and guaranteed issue is there as a last resort if you need coverage no matter what. It's like choosing your difficulty setting in a video game.
I like that. It's kind of like that.
So bottom line for everyone listening, don't freak out. Getting life insurance with IBD is definitely doable.
100%. Just remember to be proactive, manage your health, find a good broker, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Awesome advice. And before we wrap things up, I want to leave you with something to think about. Like with all this crazy tech coming out, do you think things like fitness trackers or personalized genetic data could change how insurers assess risk for folks with IBD in the future?
Oh, that's a fascinating thought. It could definitely happen. Imagine, like, your Apple Watch data becoming part of your insurance application.
Right. It's wild to think about. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, knowledge is power.
Stay informed, stay empowered. We'll see you next time. TACA.